Everybody, this is another Thursday evening, and we are here again with another episode of Rings That Bind. The RTV show is designed to help encourage couples who are struggling or those who are just getting into the marriage institution to know that they can make their marriage work. We bring in couples to share their stories, what their challenges have been in their marriage journey, how they are overcoming or have overcome. And we believe that these stories will inspire you to do the same. This show is brought to you by BridgeAfrique magazine, Home of Bliss, and panaceavilleinternational. International. My name is Nancy Oblite. I'm a marriage coach and a behavioral change expert. I'm also the host of this show. Welcome to this lovely evening. We're going to have a fantastic time together, I am very sure. Today on the show, we have a couple that I'm certain we're going to learn so much from. I've been looking forward to this edition. And they are none other than, should I say Dr. or Pastor Barnabas Alayande and his beautiful wife, Mrs. Shade Barnabas Alayande. Welcome, sir and ma, to the RTV show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
So the pair have been married for 11 years and they are blessed with 4 biological children. They've had the opportunity to raise more than 4, but 4 are their biological children. Before we go on to our conversation, we want to get to know you a bit. So can you introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about you?
They say ladies first, huh?
So I'm FOLASHADE, Barnabas Alayande. That's
okay. So I'll take up from there. She's an amazing woman. Has a background in engineering. She's a trained engineer, and then pivoted to business. So she's a business person. Has done quite a bit of work in business or creating businesses. She then moved over to education. So she has a rich background, and currently she's taking care of all of us, doing a lot of hard work in the house and managing our family. I am Barnabas Alayande. I have a background in surgical care. I'm a general surgeon, actually a global surgeon, and I also have a background in theology, have an MBA in business, and it's a whole rounded thing that we do. So we've had the privilege of pastoring churches, working with children, working with youth and young people for about 10 years now. And we also have had the privilege of doing quite a lot of things, overlapping in many ways. We have very different backgrounds. We came from very different places. I was raised by more or less a single mother. I was raised by my mom, who's a powerful powerhouse, and helped to shape our ethos of life, raised 3 of us in a powerful one-handed gesture. She was raised by two parents. One is a police officer. I mean, so the man is really strict. Before you get to their family to say you want to marry, you hear threats like, "I'll throw you down." Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she came from a much more stricter and controlled household. But at the end, we have come together, got married about 11 years ago, and have had the privilege of starting to raise four children, ranging from 10 to 3. He's going on 10 to 3 years.
4.
Yeah, she's 4 now. And really, it's been a blessing and a privilege to walk this journey with her. We currently live in Rwanda, live and work in Rwanda, though our work is, we consider ourselves very apostolic people. Our work is all over sub-Saharan Africa and actually the world. So we travel a lot, keep the children. We homeschooled for a certain segment of our lives, and then eventually transition them to certain schools. We've done so many different businesses and different things here and there. This is the creative force in our family. And so that's just a basic introduction to our very, very complicated lives.
Yeah, and very busy ones too, because when you hear someone who is a surgeon, then a global surgeon, you know that there will be a lot of travels involved, a lot of moving around, and then there are kids to take care of, especially at this age and all. I'm sure you guys are doing a fantastic job, and I salute you. Like when I hear 4 children, I'm like, what is your strength? I have 2, and I'm not planning on adding another to my 2. Yeah,
No,
so
don't worry, Miss. We also are not planning on adding another biological.
Yeah. So I want to know, how did you meet? Now you talked about a very strict father, so I want to get the gist a bit. How did you meet? What made you decide to settle down together? And those early days, how was the journey like?
I should start.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had the privilege of going to serve in Eastern Nigeria, Imo State. And the challenge was that it didn't look like the best place. My mom was working with government at the time and straight away said, look, where do you want to serve? Our friends were putting pressure on me once I got out of med school and I had my internship. So the question was, just name it where. And you know, there are epicenters in Nigeria where people want to go, Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, you make money. And I was dodging answering for a while until eventually the postings came out. And then she gives me a call, where are you posted? And I said, Imo State. She hissed and cut the call. And then eventually called and said, look, we've been asking you to send where you want to go. Okay, go for service, go to the camp. And then when you are done, come back and we'll do something about it. So I went to camp, and on the camp, that's where I first met her. It was one beautiful morning, dark. You know, we're in platoon 5. So we're standing on a queue, everybody at attention with our white shorts and our white tops. And it was dark. You're doing all sorts of physical activity, you're being told to march and things like that. And I started talking to somebody without seeing the person's face, right? The person was right beside me. We were just chatting and gisting back and forth. And then as the sun began to rise, my goodness, you know, this really lovely lady that I'm talking with. And so that was the very first time we had met. And interestingly, that evening we went for fellowship, and you know, we're just new, we're just getting into camp, and sitting around the Bible study leaders table, I see that sister again. You know, I'm stalking her, she's stalking me, and we decided to have some conversations around that time. Before we were done, we eventually sat down under a tree, and we're just talking and sharing life with one another, what the vision for life and things like that were. But that was our initial meeting. So if I had not gone to camp, that would have been an issue. And so eventually I got back, and it took a lot of convincing the forces that look, there is a lot of work to be done in this place. And it wasn't just because of her. I felt that where there is need, that's the place where we really need to make a lot of impact. So I started convincing that I need to go back. There's community development work to be done. There were 19 health facilities with no medical personnel staying there, right? So these things were shut up. There was no doctor particularly. So I went back and then was revamping that. But this was my local government where I was posted. And this was her local government where she was posted, right? So there was a boundary. And from then on, a really complicated journey. We probably shouldn't get into it here, because at that time, she was in a relationship, right? Yes, and so we were friends, just friends. And then we finished service, and a number of years later, I just call and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? What's happening? How's your fiance? How are you? And she says, fine. And then a few days later, a couple of weeks later, she calls back and said, I just said fine, but really, I mean, the relationship has been over for about 8 months. Ah, okay, that'll be 6 months. Yeah, that's good. and then I waited another 6 months, and then eventually asked her. There is a whole saga to how I asked. I came over to, I was in Jocelyn, she was in Ibadan. I came over and I bought 2 wristwatches. One was male, one was female. I gave them to her over a lunch somewhere and said, I'd like to spend the rest of my time with you.
Wow.
I'm giving you these 2 wristwatches. If you think about it, you make up your mind and you feel the same way, please send one back to me. And then we can spend all our temporary time together. Well, she held my wristwatches for a while. I forget how long, but she was thinking, and so probably she needs to tell us why. She eventually.
Yeah, I'm interested in knowing. Yeah, I'm thinking about the length of time you waited. That kind of patience. I know that many people, when they are in love, they don't wait. They want to get it now. And then 6 months in before you finally asked her out. Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, there were a number of reasons. She'll get to this point, but there were a number of reasons why when I met her on camp, I already just sensed that the values of this individual, the personality, and then there was this internal knowing that this is somebody I'd like to get to know and spend good time with. But the complication was that she was in a relationship, and I don't fight, so, just let people. So we were, in fact, at some point she was like, "Don't call me again. I am in a relationship," and so that was it. But I just had this sense that there was something for us together. I met somebody earlier. There are stories I probably should not delve into, but I met somebody earlier, and the Lord spoke to me in my inner witness. It was clear. He says, "Leave her alone. Everything you see in her and more, I have packaged into somebody for you." And so as I began to observe her, there were clear indications. Like there are many lights on a runway that tell a plane that it's time to take off, or this is exactly where you're going to land. It's not just one thing, right? It's a little exposure here, a little character here, a small confirmation here. This person resonating with you in this way. So there were multiple ways, you praying and you having this sense, in fact, there was a point which I wrote clearly, not just things I desired, but things I perceived in this person down to month of birth. Not everybody will have that experience. You get down to in June, she will appear down to. So there was that clarity for me that this was somebody I wanted. But I was not ready to, struggle and pull her out of whatever decisions she had made, which makes sense. Someone said love is like a butterfly. You can hold it in your hand, like a bird. You can hold it and squeeze it, you finish it. That's it. But sometimes when you let it go, if it's really yours, God somehow directs it to come back. So I think that having this idea that I'm going to die if I don't get this person, that is, I believe there's a divine hand that guides a lot of these things. And then when you are patient, truly, she was the only person I asked, "Will you marry?" She's the only relationship that I went into. I was waiting, biding time, expecting, and then pushing things out. So let's ask her.
So why the long wait after you got the wristwatches? That's romantic, like seriously romantic gesture.
Yeah, it was romantic, but remember, I was in a relationship. Before that, I just came out of a relationship, and I know that psychologically, when you're emotionally high or low, is not the best time to make any decision. So I needed time to heal, needed time to really know what I wanted, what I was doing. I knew since we were in the camp and we were friends. Even when I introduced the relationship, the person I was dating, when I introduced both of them. But I knew as we began to talk that there was something, because what I've perceived my life's direction was heading towards. There was this alignment. There was this, when he shared his life's vision with me, and with what I've been seeing myself gravitate towards, I saw alignment, and I saw that the relationship I was at that time, there was a lot of friction, not just friction, but like we're moving towards opposite direction in terms of values, in terms of vision, in terms of our perceptions, and a lot of things, a lot of other indices and then points. So I knew that I had made a mistake, but talking with him, I knew that being in that, continuing our friendship, just friendship, will not be healthy. So I needed to, first of all, before we even finish service, separate, cut off the friendship. We were friends, not in a relationship, because I was in a relationship and we were Christians. So I needed to cut off my relationship with him because I felt that I was already in a relationship. So I didn't have his number again before we finished the service. So I told him, I can't be your friend. And especially because the person I was in a relationship with, when I told him, he wasn't comfortable with him. So I said, there's nothing for me to lose. I don't have anything to do with you. The person I intended to marry wasn't true in agreement with you, was not comfortable with you being my friend. So I just ended our friendship. But along the line, with a lot of other things happening in that relationship, I came out. I told the person I was not. After we were done with service, and then he was already on his way. We had gone our ways. But I knew from time to time, there's this knowing from my inner man, from my heart, from the core of my being, that there was something about this person that really aligns with my direction. Can two work together except there's this alignment, there's this agreement, there's this this clicking, this
no words, huh?
this knowing that there's something we had to do together. There's a direction that we are going the same way. So, and for me, that was it. So when at the end of the day, we got back into friendship and we started talking, and I told him about that relationship that actually I was already out of the relationship, and then we continued our friendship, and he made his intentions known. And then when he came to Ibadan that time, back in Nigeria, and then he told me what he had in mind, which I already knew. I already knew what he was coming for. So, and I just needed more time to be sure, because I knew it was just going into friendship, was going to something for a lifetime. The time of that waiting and taking a very decisive and a concrete decision, something I would look forward to later and I would not regret, and confirming over and over, doubling, confirming, and checking a lot of things and putting so many things together, and then consulting my mentors, relating it to them, which I missed the first time. It was just a solo relationship. It was long, 4 years, but it was solo. I wasn't really carrying my spiritual heads along, my mentors along. But this one, I knew that no, I couldn't just handle it alone.
I saw every mentor. I saw every mentor. I went to dinner in every house. I got instructed in many ways.
But I picked something very vital from what she said. She learned from the previous relationship things that didn't work. The fact that you were in the relationship alone, many people do not realize that sometimes we get clouded by emotions and we are unable to make right choice. That's why one of my favorite books says, in the multitude of counsel, they say. So when you have people around that hold your hand, that are able to see what you cannot see, they'll be able to point you and say, this is not right. I don't think this actually fits, and all. And I think a lot of young people miss this, because there's this craze that, once you love somebody, you shouldn't listen to advice. If you are listening to an advice, you don't truly love the person. So the fact that the both of you were willing to wait, it also speaks of your values, that you are not compromising your values because of feelings. I find a lot of young people compromising their values in the name of, this is how I feel, I cannot deny my feeling. Meanwhile, our feelings are subject to us because we are the king. The feeling is supposed to serve us, not to rule us. And so those two things are powerful. I'm so glad that you shared that story, because we have picked something from here already. Yeah, so I want to ask, in your relationship, who is a quieter person?
He's the one. He's the one.
Because I know that in every relationship, or most relationship, one person talks more than the other, and it's kind of like sweet, because when this person is talking, there's somebody to listen. But if two people are talking, nobody to listen. So that combination just easily works. However, when we get married, sometimes it begins to become a challenge, because we are feeling like, why is it that I have to do all the talking? Or the other person is feeling, why are you bugging me always with a lot of talk? I want to have my space. Have you had any of such challenges in your relationship?
Thank you.
Yeah, so
I'm laughing because she reminded me of something earlier in the day.
Okay, so earlier in our marriage, because I was raised, it was a big family. We talked so much, played so much, had fun, and you express yourself and you just keep talking. So when we got married, I already knowing him in our courtship, in the lead up to marriage, and our courtship was very short, about 7 months. From the point we agreed to marry, by November, we got married in June. So knowing, I've known all that is more reserved, more quiet, though he's able to express himself, talk when it's necessary and all that, not that he just bottles up things and then he doesn't release. He's very objective, and then he can actually present himself, explain himself out. But when we got married, I realized that I talk more. I will want to continue this discussion, tell him about things, both trivial, both sensitive, both important, both fun, humorous, and everything, just the discussion. And today I was giving him a scenario that for me, it looked like a particular, like a program that you're running, the communication life, and then you have a lot of courses to take, both elective and core courses, and everything actually is important for you to graduate, for you to gain mastery in that particular program. I said, so communication is like that. Some are trivial, some are important, some are, all this make up a good communication. It can't just be strict, it can't just be serious, and it sometimes is humorous, and all these things help our communication. But it wasn't so. So I remember one particularly. We were on our way close to NYSC in Jos, that road, Mihango Road. And then I'd been talking in the car. After a while, now turned to him. "Ah, you've not been saying anything." And he said his mouth was paining him. So I wondered that I've actually been the only one really talking and asking and all that. Does that mean I'm the one that, like, there's no...
Like, seriously, please, doctor, how does a person...
And I've never heard such in my life, that anybody who's my mouth is paining me for talking. So it was
all the orbicularis oris, all those muscles, the buccinator, the masseter.
And he hasn't really talked much in the conversation in the car, because we're going home, and everywhere cannot be quiet. We should keep the atmosphere, the atmosphere lively and all that. So I didn't like it, and I expressed my concern and my displeasure, especially with that statement that his mouth was paining him. So I expressed myself that I didn't like it. So then, presently, we have come by personal transformation, personal growth, and knowledge. he talks more. I talk less. Like, I don't talk the way I used to talk before, but it's not as just, those extremes are no longer, because they were not helpful. They were not helping us, and it cannot help. It can't build a good communication life. And when we are not good communicators, it will reflect in our children's lives too. We can only make a replica of ourselves. We can only bring up children like ourselves. So we had to look into it and began to change, because he has grown like that. I've grown like that. I knew that mine too was too much, and his was so bad. So there had to be a coming to not just a middle line, but a personal transformation individually, knowing that this is necessary, this is important, whether once it has to do with what you have to do with relationships, somebody you love, people you are in relationship with, you just have to communicate.
And by the way, that was not a malicious statement. That was like actual, true. Like, yeah, it wasn't. I'm serious. It was.
It was the truth.
I kind of like to think of myself that I don't have the capacity to say things like that. It's scathing me, but gently. So it's now, we began to understand that there is the need to really express and then communicate with each other. And there is the need to also give space in communication. I like quiet. Like, quiet is something to me. Helps you meditate, helps you to think about the future, helps you to even talk to God. There's that space, right? And that space needs to be created. But again, you need to be able to communicate concerning certain things. I prefer to listen. Even till today, I prefer to listen than to speak. And I think it's good in a sense. Yeah. But when you're in a relationship and you don't talk about things, even things that are not the core course, she uses the illustration of, this is all of life is this curriculum. There are core courses you need to talk about, but there are now elective courses that, well, maybe not. You need to pass all of them to be able to come up excellently. So I began to learn how to talk about the electives more and more. I think that we're in a good place.
Wow, that's interesting. I like that analogy of causes and all, because some people tell me when they come in for counseling or coaching, they tell me, please, my wife just wants me to talk about irrelevant stuff. They don't, the mundane things, the things that don't matter. I like to have intellectual conversations. I like to have conversations about business or work or career. And then she's coming to tell me about a movie she just watched and the funny things that happen. So they trivialize the elective, if I may borrow your words, they trivialize those stuff. But those stuff are also important because they help you know each other better. If it was intriguing to her, you also want to know what about that thing was intriguing, why she wanted or he wanted to, or he enjoyed that thing, that he's even so interested in sharing that moment with you. I think that when people begin to look at communication beyond just the subject matter to the fact that they are enjoying time with each other, it will help to keep their communication going. So that is really powerful. I like that. I'll use it. I'll borrow it from you, and I'll use it regularly as an analogy.
I want to say that she was my lecturer in talking, right? Because I would come back from work and she would say, how did work go? And the normal tendency for me would be to think in headlines, like, fine, it went well. But she wants to hear, how many surgeries did you do? How many people did you talk with? Was there any challenge at work? What exactly happened? So she started to teach me how to move beyond the headlines to read details. How did you feel when this happened? How did you, so what's going to be your response? And that really got me to begin to think even deeper about my own experiences. So I celebrate my lecture.
and that's fantastic, because a lot of people just do headlines. Gary Chapman says that the average couple doesn't spend 5 minutes talking. And that's very deadly for a relationship. How was work? Fine. So what happened today? Oh, normal, the normal stuff. Everything just went okay. And thank God we are out, we're back home. You know, just headlines. They are not talking about the experiences they have. And those experiences regularly shape us. Those experiences change our perception about life, our perception about our jobs, our perception even about family. If we don't share those things, we will be changing without taking our partners along. That's why some people wake up years later and look at each other and like, please, who are you? Where did you come from? This is not who I married. Because they were not sharing the journey together. The changes happening within the journey were not being shared. And that's so powerful. That's so powerful.
Thank you.
So I want to ask another question. Now, this question is interesting, right? It's about conflict. I notice that conflict is huge in relationships. Many people find it difficult to manage a conflict. And usually in conflict styles, there are generally 3 styles people use in conflict. One is the fighter. The fighter is they attack each other or go verbal. As soon as there's a conflict, they don't wait. They say what they feel right now, right here. Some may be abusive, yes, others may not, but they just say it as hot as they feel it. And then that's how they handle conflicts. Other people would want to resolve, sit together, have a conversation about the issues, and then come up with a solution. While other people will generally avoid, move away, withdraw when there's a problem, and then re-engage into the relationship as if nothing happened. So which of these 3 do you fall as an individual, sir?
Okay, before now.
Okay. No, I think I'll hand it over to her because she's studied my life.
Yes, she's the expert.
She's the Barnabasology.
So, when we got married initially, when there were issues, I would just withdraw. I would just be quiet. The mood, the atmosphere, everything would change, would switch. But because he maybe just coming in and the way I would relate normally would have changed, then it will keep asking, what's the matter? I say, nothing, I'm fine. But sometimes I just want to be alone. So after a while, it keeps pestering. Sometimes in the process, he realizes some things and by himself may hit the problem, may really nail the matter.
This is the guessing game.
Yeah, it's a guessing game. Why is it this? Is it that? I say, no. Sometimes he gets it. And sometimes, but after a while, then I would just be open to, let's talk about it. So I realized that wasn't helping. So I was like that before. He was the one always wanting to, let's resolve, let's dialogue, yes, let's reason together. What's the matter? How do you think? How do you think? How do you? So continue.
So I think that I wouldn't want to see it as an individual thing. I want to see it as a hybrid. So eventually, I think that all that body language and all that quietness and all that saying everything is fine was actually calling for some attention, was trying to say, look, there's something wrong here. You need to figure it out. If I'm really important to you, then find out exactly what it is. But sometimes it could be really tough, like,
question.
What's going on? Just tell me. I mean, so that was it. So it may have been, eventually we would be resolvers, but it would start on this side with a kind of avoidance, but eventually coming back to the point of resolution. And, you know, when you're getting into marriage, sometimes you are naive as a man to the needs of a woman. So when you come in and you see that kind of thing, something in the back of your mind may be like, okay, if she doesn't want to talk, that's fine. My food is on the table. Let me go and eat. You know, you just sort out yourself. But, you know, this is relationship. And I think that as you know each other deeply, I don't know, there are pointers. There are all sorts of pointers. All sorts of things are going on. There are alarm bells everywhere. And it's not until, for instance, somebody says, I won't have sex with you, that you know that something is going on. Like there are many emotional chains of things that are being dropped. So the person may stand, may even smile, but you kind of guess that something, this is not just the same. So let's sort this out. On the flip side, what she's talking about, our journey, along our journey, we came to this point of, that could be the theme of this discussion. It's personal transformation. It came to this point where she realizes, look, this guessing game is not earning points. It's not making things better. In fact, it's delaying resolution and allowing things to be more roundabout. And the longer you keep, you stop healing, you know, the more chronic the wound becomes, the deeper the scars can be. And so it does make sense to resolve as soon as you can, right? As soon as it is proper, the time is right, the person is in the right frame of mind to address those issues. But once the person is in that frame of mind, you probably should not be playing this game of nothing is wrong, nothing is wrong. Yeah, and I think that when we came to that, we can very easily tell ourselves the truth. Yeah, we can tell ourselves the truth once the situation and timing is correct. I mean, it's not like I'm just stressed coming back from a terrible day, God forbid, you know, a hard day somewhere. I've had so much, and I have maybe deadlines in the next 2 hours. And as I come in, it is something about some issue that really does matter, but cannot be resolved in the moment. That it can be tabled and said, I'd like us to have a conversation. And she's great at that. She's like, I'd like to see you. There's something really important. And I'm like, I'm here. Let's see. She said, no, not now. You know, so giving that, highlighting those issues and then dealing with them in a timely manner is something that we need to.
Yeah, that's so huge. You know, I think that a lot of women do that, especially when we come into marriage earlier, because I also used to do that with my husband. I just, the atmosphere just changes and you ask and it's nothing. And I think that is probably because when we come into marriage, we are also scared of not becoming the nag, not being the one who always is talking and complaining. So we are looking for softer ways to say what we need to say or get the attention we need to get, because those things we cannot allow them slide. The challenge is that we don't want to be perceived as the nag. If you are here and you're a woman and you're watching us, now listen, the easiest way to solve it, I've tried it both. The easiest way to solve it is to go straight and say, you know what, I'm not happy about X, Y, Z. Can we sit and have a conversation about it? It's just the easier way. You don't want conflict to linger. The longer they linger, the more permanent their effect may be on your relationship. If you heal faster, your relationship will recover faster. That is, it happens even with wounds. Imagine you have a wound and you just cover it up, you refuse to treat it. The possibility that wound will last longer, in fact, it may get an infection. At the end of the day, the scar is bigger and more pronounced than it could have ever been if handled earlier. So that's the summary of that. And I think it's huge for many women. I find that many women are in this place. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I want you to give me like a typical example of a conflict you had earlier in your marriage, in comparison, that's how you handled it and how you would handle maybe a different issue, but because of the growth that has happened from when you were just married and now that you have been together for years and have come to know each other and also learned and grown.
Okay, I think the mindset of, because I realized that one of my love languages is quality time. So coming into marriage, there was this vacuum, this space, always calling for that. And when we were getting married, just started residency and busy calls. But before we got married, it prepared my mind. It was so much that I got to a time I said, stop telling me about this. what? It's too much. I will be busy. I'll go for calls. I may not come home. He told me over and over and over before our marriage. He had prepared my mind, but coming into it and seeing the reality, although I've been prepared, but it was like not. So I would really, really, really try every way to. I wanted that quantitative time. So it was one of the most challenging situations that lingered for a long time. But by growing and then maturing, developing, transforming into better versions of ourselves from time to time, we realized that having time together, having a quality time, having time qualitatively, having a time that you are able to maximize, you are able to enjoy, having a time that, although is so small in terms of quantity, but is qualitative, the worth, the value, what you do, what you share, what you are able to achieve with that time is what really matters. People can stay together for 24 hours, but it's not, they are not getting it. The more they stay together, the more they have conflict, the more they fight. But people can have few times together for a reason, for one reason, not that it's deliberate, but it's qualitative. So that's what I think, if there's anything we have come to realize, we look forward to our time together. We plan for it, we treasure, we look for it. We try to shelve things to create that protected time together. And it is, when we have that time, like the time to look forward to another time is already like set, looking at again. So it's more qualitative than quantitative. So, and that's what really matters. And it's now actually rubbing off the children, on other relationships, knowing that, okay, we may not have all the time, but this one that we have is what we have. We can actually plan it well and make the best use of it. So that's how we've been able to.
I remember coming home one evening from the hospital, and she's just waiting. I think we had Jeddah at the time. And the first question she asked me as I walked in the door is, okay, so now where is our place in your life? He said, so now where is our place? Look at this, where are we? Like from morning till night, and then you're back here. And it's time to probably study or read or prepare yourself for this or that, you know. So that was an initial response. But in response to that, I had to make certain adjustments. For instance, I started coming in, staying with the family, being around, and then when they go to bed, I would now go back and then start whatever study or the work that I was doing. It was a challenging time, but it was more like at the initial times, it was more of a frontal attack. But now I think we've gone, I still am busy, to be 1,000% honest. In the last 1 year, maybe we've hit like eight different nations or different like international trips and things like that. And it's not just for a short while. Even within the country, we still do quite a bit of traveling. And then even at home, sometimes there has to be this protected time because there are meetings in Eastern time, US time zones, and then, but we have come to a place where we've been prioritizing quality, and then being very deliberate with the time that we have. And if there is need for more time, there is now a more loving approach in saying, I need to see you. Like, for instance, today, she said, today is your day. She has specific days that are like fully, today she's with the son, tomorrow she's with daughter Jemima, next one. So there are days that are particularly, and times that are set aside. She said, today is your day. Let's have our time, you know. So and then you realize, so that is different from, where is your place in your life now? You know, that is pretty different, and it sends about a different message, even though both, you can respond to both, but there's a way that our values have actually melded and moved together.
Wow, interesting. I picked a few things. First of all, her ability to influence you, because you heard her and then you made adjustments. When you come home, you rescheduled how you ran your activities so that you have time to spend with them as a family. And then when the children go to bed, you go back to doing your studies and all the other things that you needed to do. That's a principle that I teach, and we call it accepting influence. And basically, is how much influence the man accepts from his wife that matters. It matters far more, because the man is the head of the home, and all the ability to listen, the ability to empathize with the position of the other members of the family, and as a result, make changes, is huge. So that's one that I picked from it. Now, the second thing I picked from the conversation is when she was talking about your scheduling of time, your scheduling of your relationship, when you engage and all. You said you have time for each child, then you also have the day that is your day. So despite the busy schedule, we are prioritizing our relationship. I think that this is something that very busy people can begin to work at, so that their relationship does not suffer in the name of building a career. Then you build a career. I met people who are 30 years in marriage. They built a career. They are all successful there. But when they come back and they are retired and they are home with their partner, there's nothing to talk about. It's boring. There's no connection. Then the wife begins to travel for Omugo here, travel there to visit the other relative, because staying at home with this man doesn't just make sense. All the time they should have used to build a life, they travel. And interestingly, researchers say every couple needs to spend 2 hours that's 2 hours in a week together. If they can do that, they can keep tabs with each other. So it's not about how much time, it's about the quality. So I also picked that, the quality. You schedule the time, you are prepared for it. So when you come, you engage thoroughly and have a really quality time together. So that's something I picked from that, and I thought it was very important to reiterate, especially for our listener. Yeah. Now, researchers say that there are 5 main topics that couples fight about. Okay, I can run through them. One is finance. Finance is at the top. Then sex. Then parenting styles, drug and alcohol use, and then there's I forgot to. Then there's another, but there are 5. When I remember, I'll say what the other one is.
Communication.
Sorry?
I think communication.
No, communication is the way they fight. The subjects they fight. Communication is in everything. That's the challenge. Okay, so now coming to parenting styles. When you got into this journey of parenting, did you notice any difference in your parenting style as a couple? Were there differences? What were they, and how have you learned to blend them?
This is a serious question. I think I need a glass of water. Yes. So our parenting styles were indeed different, very significantly so, because of our backgrounds. Like it was actually as a result of where we were coming from, because there's this tendency to kind of be the way that your parents were. I didn't have many spankings growing up. I was a very compliant child. I had, like, you tell me to do something, I do it. I remember the day I cried. My mom spanked me. I don't know what I did. She used a metalloplastic comb to hit me on the hand. It wasn't the pain of the hitting on the hand. It was the pain that my mom spanked me. I did something to hurt her, So maybe we put every child in that mold that they're already self-governed, they're ready to go, they can, they're responsive on their own, etc. And so I was more permissive, right? I'm more like, okay, the guy needs some ice cream at 2 a.m. in the morning. Go get it. He's hungry. But she's like, this is indiscipline. How can you wake up in the night and then you want it? You know, her dad, police officer, and I think I initially, though I had the authoritative sense, and that's where we're gravitating towards, I also had this child-driven and indulgence component to my parenting. Again, my wife used to think it's good cop, bad cop. Like mommy says, and then daddy now says, but really, there were also some aspects in her parenting that were more like authoritarian, parent-driven, very strict rules, and then punishment, and helicopter, like helicopter raised to power 2, kind of like my child wanting to be involved in everything. And so that one-way communication was not helping, with little consideration for the child's social and emotional behavioral needs, and then that feedback. And as we grew, I remember there was a point at which, looking at the children, one came, another came, another came, another came. 2 on the extremes are super active, strong, ready to take decisions, can jump off a cliff if you give them an opportunity with a parachute, you know, can climb up a tank. So those ones are now they're meshed in on 2 sides, on 2 book ends of 2 that are pretty very compliant and really quiet, would do anything that you tell them. And so that style, that authoritarian parent-driven style, was not working for, in fact, for all of them, really. But particularly for those 2, it was pushing back. Those 2 at the bookends, it was not. And so we started reading some book. My wife was doing like, let's read this one, let's read this one. And till today, I don't know the titles of the books that she read. But she would read this, leave it halfway, read another one, leave it halfway. Strong-willed child, and you know that book by we had 2 pretty strong, particularly the first one. We had a lot of lessons from the first that now moved us more and more towards an authoritative parenting style, where we solve problems together with the child. We set clear rules and expectations. We have open communication. We specifically spend time with them, give them, you know, what are the consequences of your action? This is what's going to happen. So for her, it seemed like I was going soft on the child when I'm moving in that direction, because this is the typical African home she is raised in. For me, it was even a push, because in my home, we did have discipline, but we were like, these are the prim and proper children who would just follow. Mama says this, she says, and she's doing this work alone. So she leaves and she comes back. She is the man, literally, and then she's the one fending and she's the one caring. And so putting all that together, we actually have grown based on the teachings or learnings from the first child. Jedediah has been an experiment, and then it's been like a practical ground, and he really has brought out this. Stretched. Yeah, that's those are words. He's stretched, and then he has brought out this style that is not. You can't be there all the time, finicky details of their life. They need to learn independence, right? And you can't be this strict. If they want cake at 9 p.m. It's not hurting. They are hungry. That's not. You can't overindulge a child, and then you can't smother the child and not allow his nature. So I was asking her why, because this is transformation, really, and I can testify to it. You know, before she would like shout when she's pushed the wall, but now I don't hear her voice. Like it may call somebody to a room and then sit down, and then you hear them communicating and talking about an issue. That's generally the way have approached the matter. So I think it's been a push-pull.
I think I think based personal transformation and growth, especially when you've set a goal, you try to do something in a way, you've hit the rock, it's not working. It would be unfruitful to continue that way. So I tried. I realized that the mold that I was put in while being raised up, none of them could fit into it. It wasn't working. And then I realized that by the time I'm done, though my intentions were right, my heart was loving. It was with love that I would want to do, but presentations were wrong. The way I would handle it, I'll be angry. The child will not get the message. Nothing was achieved. And then in my personal work with God, I would already feel so drained, dry. I would not be able to communicate. I would feel like I've really done, I'm not myself, emotionally down and all that. So I began to just like I was in a training, and I needed a lot. There were a lot I didn't know. I needed to know God's perspective to it, to parenting. And then people who have gone ahead, the lessons they've learned, some of them have masters, practical, not just theoretically, experiential. They have mastery of this aspect, and praying to God about it, God will lead you to what already He has made, the provision He has made available in people's lives, their experiences in terms of resources and all that. So it's a holistic and an overall
I love the fact that the both of you are so open to learning and growth. Because I find, especially in the church circle, that's where I grew, that's where I have been, you find a lot of people abdicate responsibilities like this to God and say, oh, God will take care of it, or I don't know what to do anymore. So they are not looking for additional resources. It's like kind of like praying without working, not combining. See, because ultimately wisdom, God has given some people wisdom, and that's why we even go to church, to listen to another person preach to us, because some people have mastery in different areas. And if we have people that are called as pastors, we would also have people that are called as parenting coaches, as marriage therapists, as electricians, as medical doctors, and all these people have their place in the body. So I am so glad that you have expounded on how you went through this. You prayed, you spoke to God, which is the first port of call. Then you also sought resources, sought to change, instead of forcing the children, because that's what some people do, bending the children over and backwards, ending up traumatizing them, making them less than they would have been. You chose to find a way to raise these children powerfully. And if you are listening to us and you belong to any school of thought that says it is not, or you should only pray and not do work, I am glad that the people who are speaking to us today are pastors. They're pastors in church. They've had experience with God speaking to them, and they are also willing and open to learning from other sources. Now, look at it, the transformation. The both of you were at two extremes, and you've walked your way to the middle to find a balance, not just for yourselves as parents, but also the healthy balance for the child to develop healthily. And so it's really powerful. Now, I've heard you speak before, and the both of you have spoken about having a purpose, a family vision. In fact, when you started, you said the first conversation you had together was about vision, was about purpose. So how has that helped you in your parenting journey, knowing where you are going as a family and all? How has that helped in your parenting journey?
Okay, I think I think you should start.
There probably are details that we cannot share very openly, but it is clear right from the get-go. It is really clear what kind of, and I think anybody who's going to a relationship should have this kind of clarity. What exactly are you going into this relationship for? You know, you hear some people saying that let's just try, let's just see what will happen.
If it works.
Things don't just work like that. People put specific thought. In companies, there's what they call strategic planning, where you sit down and you think in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years, this is where this company is. If we want to take it to 100 years, this is what we want to do. Nations, the best of nations, also have strategic plans for long terms. You know, some nations actually go beyond several lifetimes to plan. And so if you're coming to something as important as marriage, that is the bedrock or the institution of that undergirds all of society, because in my opinion, if there's no proper home as an institution, then your schools are wrong, your governments are wrong, everything else is wrong. So if you don't have a strategic plan for that, you don't have a clear vision for your home, you have not, and you know, based on our background, we add clarity in seeking God's face and getting to know what the will of God or the mind of God is concerning. So if you don't have that, then there are lots of errors, multiple different things you do on the way. So for us, it was clear at the get-go. In fact, it's with sincerity that we can say we knew the number of children we were going to have. We already had their names in the specific order before they were born. Jemima, and you know, we had this push-pull. Let's make it 3. Let's make it 4. Let's make it 3. Let's make it 4 before we go married. I said, don't worry. You see, we have 4. You know, and so eventually we have 4 children with all that. So there was already that alignment, and we kind of perceived how they would fit into the family vision. So for the first 40 days of Jedediah's life, we were praying and fasting and seeking God, and we were every day reading this scripture over him, which captures where we believe the Lord would have him head in life, you know, and places where he's going to be. So every day we were reading that over him, reading that over him, reading that over him. So I think vision actually helps you to align the child into greater purpose. You're thinking more futuristically for this child, not just here and now. He's going to school. Yeah, so why is he going to this school that he's going to? What exactly will he get out of it that will help him? We have 4 children. They could easily go to the same school. In fact, there is a discount from the 4th child, right? But we see who they are, what their hands are like, and what they would, you know, we're already seeing their direction. We're seeing where they're going. We deliberately put 2 in an international baccalaureate school, 2 in a Montessori school, because there are things they're already doing and the way that they're going. So all these have implications, and they just can't be everywhere. They can't just like be at every party, just do everything, listen to everything, watch everything on TV, watch everything on their laptop. They even wear anything. So all this is kind of, it's guiding our vision as a home, is guiding what we permit the children to do, what we permit them to see, where they should be, even the very schools that they should be. We're thinking more long-term for them. So I think that influence, they eventually will decide and you train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it, but it is his growing old and deciding to walk in this specific path. But you put all the pointers, make all that available for them, and you're kind of influencing the next generation already by the vision that you have. And you know, whether we call it a vision or not, the way we raise our children already influences them and points them in another direction. So if we're thinking term, if a father is coming home drunk at night, slapping his wife, and then he's setting up a son that will likely do that, likely. Except he takes the other extreme and says, look, my father did this, I'm never going to do that. Some of us have had those experiences. But what we're saying is that we are a big influence in our children's life. And if we don't know where we are going, we're just raising them randomly. They probably will not know exactly where they are going. So the children look at us and they kind of see what is possible. They see that parents can love one another, can live with one another, can care for one another. They see that a mom can run a home well. They see that a dad can be caring, can do ministry, can still have a family. So that is already shaping their minds and their mindset. So I think it's really speaking to the future of the children. Shade.
You've said it all.
Oh.
I think he has said it all.
Well, that's like so important. A lot of us, because even our own lives were not planned for it, let alone plan for a family. So a lot of people are married and life just happens. How many children do you want to have? Let's go and see how many God gives us. No plan, no focus. We take children to school because of reasons of probably finance, proximity, and all. We're not looking at what we want them to be, their future and all. And I think that this is paramount. I think that is even one of the basic challenges we have as Africans, that even for our nation, we are not looking long term. Most of our plans is for 3 days, 4 days, what this president will do during his term. When the other person comes, the whole thing is scattered, rewired, and we start all over. Many of us just do haphazard job with parenting. And that's why because we don't have a future, it's hard to say what is permissible in the relationship and what is not. Or one person's goal is different from the other person. There's no harmony with the vision of the family. So the father wants the child to be X, the mother wants this for the child. I'm talking about discipline, not even career. And because of that, they do not agree on the means to achieve that discipline. This person is pulling in one direction, the other is pulling in the other direction. So that's really huge. Now, we're about rounding up. I have just 2 more questions. The first is to say, what would be your recommendation for couples who are struggling with one difference or the other? You've shared with us a couple of differences you had when you got married. I think that is general, that every couple will experience differences when they get married. What would be your recommendation for them as they struggle to find a way to handle these differences?
I think for me, I remember very well a scenario from the categories that you pointed out the other time when you were asking a particular question, that who is the fighter, who brings up issues, so I remembered a time in our marriage, early years of our marriage, and from time to time, it would be the one that comes forward, that says, what's the matter, let's resolve. And it kept on coming over and over and over. And the change in my life began when I really sat down, because I know I'm a Christian. We married as Christians, we are Christians, we are believers. And I began to look inward, and I saw that I had a lot to change. There were many things that were wrong with me. I looked inward that if it's the only one that's been coming to me, and the matter has not been that he's the one that has been having all the issues, most of the time, maybe it's 50-50 or it's even more from me, but it will never come from me to come forward to him. I looked at it as something was wrong. And this question was so much on my mind that, are we actually going to the same heaven? So that was the question for something is wrong with me. And that was when the change began. I think before you can change anyone, your spouse, your husband, your children, fellow workers, any sphere of life, because we relate with people. The change has to be with you. If you are not yet open-hearted inwardly, you will not be able to, first of all, make changes about your personal life. You'll not be submitted to transformation, to growth, to learning, to unlearning and relearning, to maturity in any aspect. Because when it first of all has to do with you and you stop pointing fingers at other people, any other person, whether child or spouse, when you stop doing that, then the change began. The change begins. So I see that from us, each spouse, each person should focus first of all on your personal transformation. Because if you are not transformed personally, no matter what the other person brings, it is like a raw, like iron sharpens iron. But iron, when it sharpens wood, because you are in your raw state, like a raw gold, when iron sharpens wood, it's like the wood will be spoiled. Or the iron, it will not pay on both sides. It's either the wood is destroyed or the iron is blunt. So, but when the two people are growing, they are aspiring to become a better version of themselves, updating themselves, growing, subject to learning, commit to learning, commit to growth, commit to changing from the inside out. Then it becomes like iron is sharpening iron, and you are more refined, and you enjoy each other better. You enjoy relationship with others better. The family run better. Your life works better. There are changes that happen, and it will be to the overall change and transformation of that person. So for me, that key thing of personal development and transformation is very, very important. Downplay it a lot, thinking the other person should change, pointing fingers. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't move people forward. So that's one core thing for me. And then because transformation has to do with people, human beings are the most complex of all creations. It takes time, patience. It calls for patience. When we are not patient with ourselves, we cannot see the fruit of whatever we are aspiring to get into. Patience with the other party, because you are not that person. You can't change no man. In fact, people begin to change. You can actually be a change to others by influence. We rule by influence, not by force. So when you begin to personally become better, change, submit to learning, growing, then your influence, there's a way it provokes the other person to that kind of thing, becoming like just watching you alone, not by force, but by influence. Who you are, then rubbing up on people around you. So patience, transformation, and patience, it's one process I think that anybody that wants to achieve anything in marriage, in any aspect of life, should submit to. So
I agree. And then integral to a lot of this, you must have heard through our conversation, is our faith. I think that this is one hack for us. And the truth is that there are many people who are Christians and they still have trouble in their relationships. But I think that both of us committing to continually grow in the fruit of the Spirit. In 1 Corinthians 13 is an amazing book. Jew, Gentile, Hindu, Muslim, who read that 1 Corinthians 13. You see, there is something, true love is patient, it is kind, it doesn't keep record of wrongs. In sense, like in 1972, exactly by 9 p.m. you know what you say, those kind of things. So it believes, it trusts, it's not rude,
not envious, it's not jealous.
And for us, those things are important. Look at the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians 5:23, 20-23. It talks about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, like just kindness, opening the door for somebody, kindness, getting some water and kindness, just basic love in action, that kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, just being gentle with the person, being self-controlled. So I think that really captures that personal transformation that we're talking about. If you do it you can come together and try and influence each other to do that. But I think that the most important thing is to have time apart where you build these things and then you come together. So I think, again, mentorship is key. I remember, what was it? I was not eating when we just got married, and that was just me. Like, that's just me. Breakfast, what is breakfast? That kind of thing. She knew who to call. She said, if you don't eat, I will call XYZ. She knows. Said, I'll call this. So I am submitted to authority. There's somebody who oversees us, right? Somebody who can mentor. I think that young couples that are looking at those issues, who is your father? Who can mentor? Who can speak into both of your lives and you listen? So when there is nobody like that for your husband or nobody like that for your wife, then you're headed down a dangerous road, right? Because there are times you need people to speak over you. Then over and beyond just somebody speaking over you, somebody who's like an overseer, I think getting knowledge, getting training is really important. Today's time is, I have a conflict of interest because Miss Oblete she's our coach, she's our teacher. We just sat down with her or something some time back because we had evaluated our marriage for the time. When we're if I had a couple at church that were going through a hard time, and I've counseled, I'll say, wait, this one, you pass me. This woman, give her 30 days. I'll say, just I know you're about to give up on this, but just give this woman 30 days with you, and I'll call her and say, go be with them. You need people like that who are experts in the subject and can speak into your lives and train you and then go through a lot. There's a lot of thought and a lot of wisdom. So I think getting professional counseling, getting people who know what they're talking about to speak to you is really important. And then in terms of values, we have something we keep talking about. When we got into marriage, we're like equity, equality, 50-50, has to be fair. You have to move beyond that, sir, man. You move beyond that. You get to a place where you're talking sacrifice, mercy, grace, tolerance, letting go. Things don't have to be cut and dry. So it's not about, I don't want the person to cheat me. Sometimes you will bend over backward for this person. You create a room for them. And so those are just a few things that we would advise on our journey. Above all, we know that this, and it has been real for us. It's not enough. Let me put it that way. It's not enough to just have faith or to just be a believer, or it's not enough. There is growth that must be had, right? It's a good start. In fact, it's a necessary start, but there is growth that must be had. And if you stop growing, then you get stuck along that journey of transformation. So I think it's internal, spiritual, it's also external, and then the learnings and the covering that you have. It's a journey. Our encouragement to anybody that's listening and that's like, I wish my wife were like your wife, she listens. Your husband was like your husband, he's smiling, he's quiet. I even want a quiet husband, so, this one is always shouting. It's a process. It's a journey, right? You can't have somebody on a platform. The person that you're looking at has worked on the husband has worked on himself. They have taken time. They've been through thick and thin. And then you see this shiny thing and you think, let me just grab it. The truth is, work on your own too. And start with yourself. It can work. So that's the encouragement. I think that our society so easily throws in the towel. We're just like, he didn't buy a car for my birthday, I'm divorcing you. He didn't get me. Something small happens, we're just like, he doesn't care, I'm tired. Those kind of things. We're not in any way undermining the true difficulties that people go through. But I think that we need to be deliberate about putting effort into our homes and not letting things go just easily. We need to fight. There's this song that says, "Love is not a place where we come and go as we please." Right? It says, when you go, lock the door and throw away the key. The sense that we want to make this work. And I think that once we have these values, that marriage is really important. It is foundational. The home is the core of what God wants to do on the earth, the core of what can happen to society, the core foundation for our institutions, for our schools. And we place that value on it. And then we will start, putting more attention on our homes and being ready, be more gracious to our spouses and being deliberate about our family.
Well, that's like a teaching on its own. And it's so, like you've said so much. I just hope, thank God this is on YouTube. You can come back and watch it as many times as you need to, so that you digest these things. There are so many things that have just been said in this very short time that is so powerful, that if you begin to apply, you will definitely see changes. One of the things I like that we talked about is the place of patience. Now, many people, when they use patience in marriage, they talk about endurance. That's just accept what is coming. But here we are talking about patience as waiting until growth takes place. So we are doing something to improve the relationship, but we are also willing to wait until we begin to see the fruit. And that's the place of patience. There's so much that has been said. So finally, Sir Amma, before you leave, I would like to get your feedback, your opinion about Rings That Bind, what you think, and if you have any recommendations for us.
If I think just being here is a recommendation. Really, I think that Rings That Bind, and particularly the staff that are behind it, particularly Miss Obete and then her team, are an amazing group of people who are experts in the subject. And people need to learn, especially for Sub-Saharan Africa, need to learn that this is really, really important. I have referred people to you and your program in the lead up to marriage, especially people who matter to us. I've also referred people who are hitting the rocks, who probably did not do that lead up to marriage there. And we ourselves also, we learn and you have done. So this is like an all-out recommendation that there are materials out there available from the team, Rings That Bind, and the team. I think people need to get them. I think that the pre-marriage counseling packages, the packages that are married, they are much more worth it. In fact, the things that you learn are worth much more than anything that you might pay. And then we would like to encourage that you subscribe to the channels that are showing this, and that you make sure that you continue to follow, because this is not just a one-day transformation, right? It takes a lot. It takes a journey, and then be patient with those processes. So our heart, from the depths of our being, with all the recommendation that is possible, we think that there is a lot of spiritual thought that goes into this, a lot of psychology that goes into this, which is a great thing, a lot of expertise. And when you sit with the Rings That Bind team, you see that there is a lot of scientific process that goes into drawing out the ideas and then the thoughts that are forwarded, the concepts that are forwarded. So it's not just some wishy-washy, yeah, we want to do marriage counseling. Be patient. Submit. No. There is a lot of thought and depth that goes into this, and for that we are careful to say thank you, and we acknowledge the grace of God on your life and the things that you are doing. So please, as many people have one issue or the other, and you need to talk with the counselor, Rings That Binds is very good, one of the great outlets and one of the great places that you can go to learn and to grow.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Bible says, buy the truth and sell it not. And then the fact that another place Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is something that as long as we live, we continue to acquire, continue, not just acquiring, but will come to the place of application. That's wisdom. But you cannot have wisdom without knowledge. This is a platform of knowledge. It's a treasure. Something that's when you have mastered or you have laid mastery on whatever aspects, especially the marriage issue, family issue, you can pass it on. You can begin to mentor others. But you can't mentor somebody when you have not been mentored yourself, when you don't know what you want to say, when you have not laid hold or you have not had mastery on that particular thing. And I think that for our complete success, overall excelling in marriage life, there are many opportunities, many platforms, many trainings, many people, many resources, many dedicated people, designated, appointed people, ordained people, expertise, experts, professionals, and rings that bind, led by Mrs. Oblete, is one of such. It is rare to combine this knowledge and on the basis of Christ. It is rare to have a spirit-filled, packaged program in the society that we dwell in now. So it means that even when the issue is beyond psychology and physical, there's still provision for you. And when it is something that psychology alone and something that just counseling can solve, because some problems are actually can be solved like that. So it means that there's overall provision for whatever aspects your need may be. So I would encourage everyone, every marriage, every individual that's aspiring to get into marriage life, to subscribe to this and to connect with this vision. It is a gift to our generation.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, your time, your support beyond here. Now, one of the things that you did, I told my husband, I was like, wow, this is amazing. The fact that I work with people, right? And then many people come when they're having issues in their marriage and they're looking for help. But then I got a message from you and you said, oh, we are celebrating our anniversary and we just want to do a checkup to make sure that we are covering all bases. If there's something we need to work on and all. And it was just amazing. It was beautiful. I was glad to have that privilege and honor to do that work with you, just to help, and then it's something that we don't do as a people. We don't have a maintenance plan. We don't have a checkup plan. We wait until things get bad before we begin to seek help. But if we have a maintenance plan, we can stop something from when it's insignificant, when we have not even noticed it before it becomes an issue. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the fact that you came here today to share with us your experience on Rings That Bind. Listener, I'm sure you have learned a lot. And I am also certain that you will be joining your voice with me as I say thank you once again to Mr. and Mrs. Barnabas Alayande. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ma.
Yeah. Yeah, so listener, remember we are going to be having an event very soon. It's coming from BridgeAfrique magazine. It's called 72 Hours of 72 Hours of History. It's a talent hunt for young people. They will come into one room, they'll be trained, and then they will exhibit their talents and winners will emerge. So keep your dial here. Make sure you keep connecting with us. You'll get all the details as soon as registration begins and how to participate. It's going to be taking place in various cities around Africa. We are starting with Nigeria and then it will move around. So stay tuned and remember that Rings That Bind is committed to helping you have that happy marriage. If you are struggling in any way and you are unable to create this home alone, don't throw in the towel yet. Get another voice, get somebody else that can help you. And we offer our services to you happily to help you create that marriage that you've always wanted. This is what we stand for. This is what we represent. Have a beautiful evening, and Nancy Opete. Good evening, everybody. This is